Hi again, John Hauer here. A significant investment will need to be made in infrastructure to drive the sale of 3D printed consumer products. It won't be an evolutionary change, it will need to be revolutionary. But who's in a better position to make this kind of investment? Brands or retailers? I might have been wrong about retail. A few years ago, I was convinced that eventually a large chunk of 3D printing would happen in stores. Retailers had the product expertise and proximity to the customer. It could have allowed them to own the intersection of digital and physical. But for many reasons, retail is broken. Can you think of a technology in the last 10 years that was actually a benefit to brick and mortar stores? E-commerce and mobile certainly weren't. It's doubtful that artificial intelligence and virtual reality will be either. In the past, consumer brands knew if they invested enough, their product had a good chance of being successful. In addition to supply chain investments, they spent big bucks on mass media to build awareness. Then they invested even more on packaging, displays, and other in-store advertising, all in an effort to win at the point of purchase. When the market went digital, e-commerce changed the way brands marketed themselves. Instead of spending money to drive traffic to stores, they spent it driving customers to other people's websites. While all of this was going on, retailers were busy developing their own private label alternatives. Grocery brands were competing with their own retail partners. Tool companies found themselves competing with house brands at Sears, Lowe's, and Home Depot. Even office supply companies saw new competition from Staples and others. My dad worked for Mars, the candy company. He likes to tell me stories about the good old days. At one point, they were approached by a very large retailer who demanded that they create a private label version of M&Ms. They even threatened to take away shelf space if Mars wouldn't agree. Mars declined. They had spent so much time and money building their brand, they didn't want to dilute it with a private label alternative. Other brands weren't as fortunate. They were easier for retailers to copy. In the process, private labels like Walmart's Great Value and Kroger's Private Selection grew to become some of the world's biggest brands. Last year alone, total annual sales of U.S. store brands grew to a record $118.4 billion. It's not just brick and mortar either. A recent Quartz article identified at least 19 different brands that are owned by Amazon. They offer products in many different categories, including clothing, shoes, baby care, tech accessories, tools, and yes, even spare parts. So, brands made a massive investment in getting their products to market. Their retail partners rewarded them by creating a competing private label. What were they to do? Punch back, of course. Mainstream brands in many different product categories started selling directly to consumers. Companies like Mars and Nike began opening their own stores. In the online world, new technology makes it easier than ever before. Last year, between its retail stores and online presence, direct-to-consumer made up nearly 25% of Nike's sales. New era companies have also bypassed retail in favor of a DTC approach. Dollar Shave, Casper Beds, Canyon Bicycles, and even Tesla all come immediately to mind. Brands who go direct-to-consumer enjoy some key advantages. First, they're better able to control the experience. Also, by creating a direct relationship, they own the data. Perhaps most importantly, they're able to recover some margin they can use to build brand awareness and drive their own product sales. Whether they go through retail or direct to consumer, brands must still produce the products they wish to sell. With physical goods, that involves a lot of capital. If you want to be the next Warby Parker, for example, you'll need a catalog of appealing eyeglass frames that people actually want to buy. You'll spend a significant sum to have those frames manufactured, packaged, and staged for distribution. Warby Parker has raised hundreds of millions of dollars and still isn't profitable. But what if you didn't have to spend all of that money up front? The economics of 3D printing are such that it can significantly reduce the upfront investment that brands make in product. Instead of buying in bulk, they can utilize just-in-time manufacturing to significantly reduce their inventories. They can also manufacture products on demand, further reducing their supply chain cost. Brands have learned that retailers aren't their allies, they're cost centers. That's why there's so much interest in the direct-to-consumer model. 3D printing has the potential to accelerate the trend. People probably won't buy your product just because it's 3D printed, but they do recognize the benefits. More selection, quicker time to market, good quality, and reasonable cost are all very appealing. Customization and personalization are also enticing, but as I've said before, that comes with its own share of friction. In the Warby Parker example, orders placed online could be printed centrally and shipped to the customer. Brick-and-mortar customers could watch their orders being produced in store. But if brands want to leverage the power of digital manufacturing, they'll have to build the infrastructure needed to support it. Based on their past experiences with retail, they'll likely build it with a DTC model in mind. When the disruption happens, retailers will try to get on board. But if history is any guide, it'll probably be too late. Their private label alternative won't be nearly as compelling without a brand name sitting next to it. And at that point, 3D printing could be the final nail in retail's coffin. For more on why brands should consider building 3D printing's revolutionary infrastructure, we suggest you check out our article on the topic. A link is provided in the description. At Get 3D Smart, we help companies identify and capitalize on big opportunities in 3D printing. Have other questions or just want to learn more? Visit get3dsmart.com today.